It started with the final notice slipped under my door. Thin white envelope. No name. No emotion. Just final notice. Eviction stamped in red, like a brand on my already frayed life. I stood there staring at it, barefoot in my tiny kitchen, a chipped coffee mug in one hand and my second-hand phone buzzing in the other. The message was from my boyfriend, Tyler. A one-liner as usual. Working late. Don't wait up. I didn't even reply. What was the point? That sentence had become his anthem. The apartment felt colder than usual. Maybe because the heat was being cut off next week. I was 2 months behind on rent, and every bill felt like a countdown to disaster. I was juggling 2 jobs, one at a rundown diner on 7th, the other cleaning rooms at a hotel where the sheets told more stories than the guests. And yet, it still wasn't enough. I hated asking for help. I always had. But I was starting to understand why people did desperate things when no one was looking. My landlord, Mr. Vaughn, wasn't the chatty type. He was a massive man, broad shoulders, buzz cut, always in a black hoodie and cargo pants. He lived in the building, on the top floor where the air smelled like leather and cigars. People whispered about him. Some said he was ex-military. Others said he never smiled. But one thing was true. He never let rent slide. I'd avoided him like the plague. I'd dodge past him in the hallway, or wait until I heard his heavy boots fade down the staircase before leaving my unit. But that envelope told me the avoidance game was over. I sat on the couch, my knees pulled up to my chest, and stared at the wall like it would cough up a solution. My boyfriend wasn't going to help. He barely noticed me these days. We were more like roommates than lovers. He never asked how I was doing, never offered to split the bills, never even saw the bags under my eyes anymore. His side of the bed stayed cold, and so did my heart. That evening, just as I was heating up a can of soup, someone knocked. 3 sharp, deliberate knocks. My heart jumped into my throat. I didn't need a peephole to know it was Mr. Vaughn. When I opened the door, he stood there like a shadow, arms crossed, jaw clenched. But his voice, surprisingly, was calm. "You got the notice?" he asked. I nodded, unable to form words. He looked me over once. Not in a creepy way, but in a calculating way, like he was measuring how broken I was. "We'll talk tomorrow," he said. Then he turned and walked away, not even waiting for my response. I shut the door slowly, pulse racing. What did he mean by that? The rest of the night was a blur. I didn't eat. Barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, trying to think of some way out. Some miracle that didn't involve calling my estranged parents or giving up everything I'd scraped together in this city. Tyler didn't come home. He texted at 2:18 a.m. "Crashing at Dylan's. You good?" I didn't answer. Was I? The next morning I got up early, dressed in something plain but decent, and sat on the edge of my bed waiting. Every knock on someone else's door made me flinch. Every creak of the hallway boards made my chest tighten. Then at 10:03 a.m., another knock. This time, I opened the door before the third knock landed. Mr. Vaughn stood there, same expressionless face. He nodded once and motioned toward the hallway. "Come upstairs." His voice wasn't cold. It was matter-of-fact, like he was used to being obeyed. I hesitated. Everything inside me screamed caution. But everything outside me, my unpaid bills, my empty fridge, my dead relationship, screamed louder. Followed him. The hallway felt longer than usual. My stomach twisted with each step, but I kept going. What other choice did I have? Mr. Vaughn's apartment was nothing like I expected. I thought it would be all stone walls and dark corners, maybe a punching bag hanging from the ceiling and the faint echo of military-barked orders. Instead, it was clean. Modern furniture with clean lines. A dim lamp cast a golden glow across polished wood floors, and the air smelled faintly of bourbon and cinnamon. He motioned to a black leather couch. "Sit." I obeyed, hands nervously clasped in my lap. He sat opposite me in a sturdy armchair, his massive frame filling the space with quiet authority. "You're 2 months behind," he said, no judgment in his tone. 3, if we count what's due next week. I nodded slowly. I know. You don't have the money. I shook my head. No, I don't. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You working? 2 jobs. Still not enough. He stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled slowly. I don't like putting people out. But this place isn't a charity. I can't keep covering tenants who fall behind. I understand, I whispered, heart pounding. I just need a little more time. I'm not offering time, Jenna, he said, eyes locked on mine. I'm offering an alternative. Silence. Blinked. What kind of alternative? He stood, walked over to the counter, and poured himself a glass of something amber. He didn't offer me any. When he turned back around, his expression hadn't changed. Still unreadable. Still calm. You're a grown woman, he said. And I don't believe in pressuring anyone. But if you're willing to spend the evening here, with me, I can clear your balance. My stomach flipped. The words weren't crude. He didn't leer. He wasn't even close to me. But the meaning hit like a freight train. I stared at him. Are you serious? Yes. Is this something you do often? He smiled faintly for the first time. No, never. That answer made it worse. Because it meant he had thought about me. I stood up too quickly. My legs trembled. I need to think. Take your time, he said. Just know this offer doesn't stay on the table for long. I left his apartment in a daze. The hallway felt narrower, like the walls were pushing in on me. I walked outside into the cold air, letting it slap some sense into me. Was this really happening? I walked for blocks, past the boarded-up diner where I served greasy eggs, past the hotel where I scrubbed stains out of sheets that weren't mine. I kept walking until I found myself sitting on a bus bench, staring at the cracked pavement beneath my feet. My phone buzzed. Tyler, hey, can you transfer $60 to my account? Need gas. Not a single word about the eviction. Not a question about how I was holding up. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my bank app and stared at the horrifying number in my balance. I didn't even have enough to cover this week's groceries, let alone rent. Suddenly, someone sat beside me on the bench. I turned to see Mrs. Ferguson, our building's retired gossip factory. Always in everyone's business, always one step ahead of the rumors. You look pale, she said. Mr. Vaughn give you the talk? I didn't answer. He smirked. Let me guess. He offered you the same deal he offered a girl on the 3rd floor last year. Only difference is, you've lasted longer than she did. I felt the heat rise in my chest. So you're saying I should do it? I'm saying, she said, standing and adjusting her scarf. Sometimes we don't get to choose what saves us. Only how we live with it afterward. She walked away before I could respond. The sun was already setting when I got back to my apartment. I sat on the edge of my bed for nearly an hour, staring at the text thread with Tyler. It had been days since he said anything warm. Weeks since he touched me. Months since he made me feel anything close to desired. I opened the eviction notice again. Rent due. $2,400. Final extension, 24 hours. I exhaled shakily. And then I did the one thing I never thought I'd do. I opened a new message and typed, me. I'll be over in 10 minutes. Mr. Vaughn's door opened before I even knocked. He must have been waiting. I stepped in slowly, my legs shaky and my palms clammy. He didn't say anything, just motioned for me to come inside. The room looked exactly as it had earlier. Dimly lit, clean, warm. But now it felt heavier, like the air itself was watching. I'm not going to ask again, he said quietly. If you've changed your mind, walk away. No hard feelings. My voice came out like a whisper. I haven't. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once and walked to the kitchen. Do you want a drink? Yes, I said, because I didn't know what else to do. He poured a small glass of wine, handed it to me, and sat across the room. For a few minutes we just sat. The silence was thick, but not cruel. He wasn't rushing me. He wasn't even looking at me like I expected. He was giving me space. That made it worse. Or better. I wasn't sure. After a long sip I spoke. Why me? He met my eyes. You're smart. You work hard. I see you coming in late from work every night. You're not like most people in this building. That still doesn't answer the question. He leaned back in his chair. Because I've been lonely too, Jenna. And I don't want to use anyone. But maybe we both need something neither of us has gotten in a long time. I didn't reply. I just set the glass down, stood, and walked toward him. No words. No promises. Just two people who had been carrying too much for too long. The night moved slow. It wasn't transactional. It was something else. Something between desperate and delicate. His touch wasn't forceful, and mine wasn't reluctant. There was guilt in it, but also strange relief. I had forgotten what it felt like to be wanted, to be seen. In his arms, I wasn't broke Jenna or second priority girlfriend. I was just there. Alive. When I woke up, morning light was cutting through the blinds. I was alone in the bed, but a folded blanket rested neatly on top of me, and my phone sat on the nightstand, charged. I sat up slowly, my mind buzzing with guilt, confusion, and something else I didn't want to name just yet. Peace? I found my clothes folded on the chair. A note sat next to them, written in clean, block handwriting. Your balance is cleared. Breakfast's on the counter. You don't owe me anything else. Fee. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought I'd break down with shame or self-hatred. But I didn't. I got dressed, stepped into the kitchen, and found a warm plate of eggs and toast. I stood there eating in silence, staring out of his window at the empty courtyard below. The same courtyard where I used to count every dollar, every overdue day, every failure. Now it just looked quiet. When I walked back into my apartment, I checked the rent app. Balance, $0. I stared at it like it was lying. Then my phone buzzed again. Tyler. Where were you last night? Not a good morning. Not a check-in. Just suspicion, as if he still had a right to know. Then another message. Tyler. Hey. You still owe me that $60. And that was it. No apology. No care. No warmth. Something inside me snapped, but it didn't feel violent. It felt calm, like snapping the last thread of something that had already rotted through. I didn't reply. Instead, I cleaned the apartment for the first time in weeks. Packed a bag. Left my keys on the kitchen table. Then I scribbled one line on the back of Tyler's gas receipt and left it in the middle of the bed. I was alone long before I slept alone. I walked out without looking back. It's been a few weeks now. I sleep better. Eat more. I look in the mirror and see a woman I don't quite recognize yet, but I think I'll like her soon. I haven't spoken to Mr. Vaughn since that night. And he hasn't come looking for anything more. Maybe he never needed anything from me. Maybe I just needed to remember what it felt like to choose myself, even if the road there wasn't clean or easy or approved by society. But I don't regret it. Not 1 second.